Good evening, and welcome back to Shadow Whisper tonight. We're not just traveling, we're descending down the endless highways and forgotten backroads of America, where countless travelers vanished, and others returned forever changed. These are 6 true road trip horror stories, real accounts from people who faced pure terror in the middle of nowhere. Each story drawn from police files, witness statements, and chilling first-hand confessions. What you're about to hear is not legend. It's what happens when the road itself turns against you. From the silent deserts that whisper your name, to predators who stalk beneath the hum of highway lights, these encounters will make you think twice before stopping at the next rest area. If you're new here, subscribe to Shadow Whisper. We bring you true horror every night, the kind that crawls under your skin and stays there. And don't forget to hit that bell, so you never miss when the darkness comes calling again. Now, buckle up, lock your doors, and keep your eyes on the road ahead, because tonight, the journey doesn't lead home. It leads straight into hell. The map said there was nothing for 40 miles. Just empty plains, a gas icon I'd already passed, and a gray stretch of highway that narrowed until it looked like a line drawn by someone running out of ink. I'd been driving since sunrise, trying to make it across Kansas before the storm they said would roll in by night. The GPS had lost signal an hour ago, leaving me with static and a voice in my head that kept saying, "One you'll find somewhere soon." At 5:18 p.m., the gas light blinked on. The worst possible moment. I slowed, hoping for a sign, any sign, and there it was. A cracked wooden board at the edge of the road, letters barely visible under the grime. Harrow Creek, 5 miles, never heard of it. Not on the map. Not on any travel blog. But when you're running on fumes, the unknown feels like mercy. The turnoff was narrow, gravel crunching under tires. The trees closed in fast. Oaks and pines that had no business growing that close together. The air smelled older here, heavy with something damp. After a few minutes, the forest broke open into what looked like a small main street out of the 1950s. A diner, a general store, a post office with peeling paint, a few boarded homes. A tall arch stretched across the entry road with the words, "Welcome to Harrow Creek," and under it, a smaller sign, newer and cleaner. Population, 1 Lila. My passenger and occasional voice of reason leaned forward. Population 1? That's either a joke or a horror movie setup. "Let's just get gas," I muttered. The road led to a single gas pump behind a diner called Creekside Cafe. The pump was old, metal, round gauge, the kind you see in car museums. Yet the handle gleamed like it had been polished this morning. The diner door creaked when I pushed it open. A bell jingled above me, the kind you hear in small towns where time runs slower. Inside, it smelled like burnt coffee and something faintly metallic. A man stood behind the counter, tall, maybe in his 50s, wearing a spotless white apron and a name tag that read, Frank. He smiled before I said a word. "Afternoon, travelers," he said. His voice was calm, almost too calm. "You're the first ones I've seen in a long time." "Yeah," I said, forcing a laugh. "Looks quiet out here." "Quiet's one word for it." He wiped a mug with a rag that looked brand new. "Gas pump still works out back. Cash only," I nodded, relieved. "Perfect. How much a gallon?" He chuckled softly, eyes glinting in the neon light. "Don't worry about the price. You won't be leaving before dark anyway." I froze halfway through, pulling my wallet out. "Sorry, what?" He tilted his head like he hadn't realized what he'd said. "I mean, roads get strange after sundown. Locals always say that." "Locals?" Lila asked, scanning the empty booths behind him. "What locals?" His smile didn't falter. "Exactly." While Frank filled the tank, we waited inside. Lila wandered near the window, peeking through the grime. The street outside was still, like a photograph. Every building looked staged, too clean, too frozen. There was no sound. No wind, no bugs. Just a faint hum that could have been a fridge or a generator under the floor. I checked my phone. 0 bars, no Wi-Fi. Even the time wouldn't update. A Polaroid wall hung beside the counter. Dozens of faded photos of people smiling in front of the diner. I stepped closer. The faces blurred with age, but the clothes were wrong. Bell-bottoms, high collars, perms. The newest photo in the middle showed Frank standing outside the same diner, holding a grand reopening banner. The date scrawled below, June 17, 1994. "Hey Lila," I said. "Come see this," but she didn't answer. I turned. She was staring out the window again, motionless. "What is it?" I asked. "There's someone by the post office," she whispered. I looked. Sure enough, a figure stood across the street. A man, or something shaped like one, facing the diner perfectly still. The distance and glass warped his features, but he wore a hat. No movement. No breathing. I blinked and he was gone. "Probably reflection," I said, not convincing even myself. Lila shook her head. "No reflection moves like that." The door jingled and Frank returned, wiping his hands. "Full tank," he said cheerfully. "No charge today. Just be sure to stay put until morning." "Why?" Lila asked. He looked out the window where the figure had been. "Because once the sun sets, the road disappears. And if you're still here when it does, you'll belong to Harrow Creek." His tone didn't change, but his eyes did. Flat, glassy, like someone repeating lines they'd said before. I tried to laugh it off. "Thanks for the warning. We'll risk it." Frank smiled again, too wide. People always say that. Outside, the horizon had turned red-orange. The light bled across the sky like fire under glass. When we stepped out, the air felt thicker. The buildings looked slightly different. Angles off, windows reflecting places that didn't exist behind us. I turned to glance back at Frank through the diner window. He was gone. The open sign flickered out, and across the street every building had lights on now. We sprinted to the car. The fuel gauge showed full, but the engine coughed when I turned the key, then roared to life like it had been waiting. The road we'd driven in on was gone. Just endless black trees where the gravel had been. "Go," Lila said, voice breaking. I drove anyway. Tires spinning on dirt, headlights slicing through the dark like underwater beams. The GPS stayed blank, the map gray, until the entire screen flickered white. Then text appeared. "Turn back." I killed the engine. "You're seeing that too, right?" Lila nodded slowly, clutching her seatbelt. Then a voice came from the back seat. Calm, familiar. "I told you not to leave before dark." We spun. The back seat was empty, but the rearview mirror showed him. Frank. Sitting behind us, hands folded, eyes fixed on the road ahead. I turned in real space. Nothing. The seat was empty. When I looked back in the mirror, he was smiling. "Population 2, he said softly. The headlights flickered. The trees began to move, not sway, move like shapes unpeeling from the darkness. Pale faces blurred, all watching. Lila screamed as something thumped against her window. A handprint, wet and colorless, sliding downward. The radio clicked on by itself. A woman's voice whispered through static. "Welcome to Harrow Creek, population now updated." The car jolted forward. I slammed the brakes, but the pedal hit the floor. Useless. The headlights cut across the diner again, except now there were dozens of people standing in the windows. Motionless. Watching. Then, all at once, they vanished. The car stopped dead at the arch. The sign glowed faintly. "Welcome to Harrow Creek, population." To and under it, a new line of dripping paint forming slowly, letter by letter. "You'll be back." I'd been driving alone for 9 hours. The kind of flat western highway that makes the sky feel heavier than the ground. September had turned the fields the color of toast. A long-haul playlist and cheap coffee were doing their tug-of-war on my eyelids, and the fuel gauge read just over a quarter. My plan was simple. Make Cheyenne by midnight, crash at a friend's spare room, walk into a client meeting pretending I hadn't spent the previous day glued to cruise control. Past mile marker 223, I saw her, thumb out, red backpack, gray hoodie, standing where the shoulder widened to a shallow gravel apron. There was no car nearby, no suitcase, no frantic waving. Just a stillness I recognized from people who have moved past panic into patience. I did the normal thing first, stared straight ahead like I hadn't seen her, negotiated with myself about risk versus guilt, waited for my better judgment to win. It didn't. I eased over, hazards blinking in the bright afternoon, gravel ticking the undercarriage like polite knocks. She jogged up and bent at the window. Up close, she looked mid-20s, dark hair braided quick, a calm face built out of left turns, nose a little crooked, one eyebrow nicked by a childhood scar. She didn't smell like someone who'd been out here long, laundry soap, not sweat. The red backpack hung square between her shoulders and seemed heavier than it looked. "Where you headed?" I asked through a cautious 2-inch crack. "West," she said, voice even. "Anywhere past here." It was the wrong answer. I unlocked the door anyway. She slid in with the quiet of someone who'd rehearsed not taking up space, put the backpack on the floor between her feet and clicked her seatbelt without me asking. The dashboard's AC vents were already pointed at her side. She turned none of them. "Thanks," she said, eyes on the windshield. I kept thinking somebody would stop. Then the road got long. We rolled back into the sparse traffic like we'd simply completed a merge. For 10 minutes we did that ride-share silence where strangers calculate each other's temperature. I offered water. She shook her head. I offered music. She shook her head. She kept her hands on the top of the backpack where the zipper curved, fingertips resting like a guard's. "What's your name?" I said, because it felt weird not to humanize a person you were transporting through nowhere. "Hannah," she said. "You?" "Evan." She nodded like that fit. A mile later, she reached into the bag, not all the way, just 2 fingers under the flap, and pulled out a Polaroid. I hadn't seen one in years. White border gone a little gray with handling. A backyard in summer. A man in a ball cap pretending to lose a wrestling match with a boy about 9. A woman on a lawn chair laughing with her whole mouth. A girl with a garden hose caught mid-spray. Water in glassy arcs. Sunlight doing its loudest work. The ordinary perfection of a Saturday you don't know you'll miss. "Nice picture," I said. "Yours?" She didn't answer, only angled it so I could see it better, then laid it face up in her lap like a compass. She never touched the emulsion, only the border. Careful as a museum tech. "You don't see Polaroids anymore," I said, because people fill silence with the generic when the specific is too sharp. "Paper keeps its promises," she said softly. We passed a green sign for a town I'd never heard of. 2 exits, 3 cows. A billboard selling fireworks in months that had no business with fireworks. Wind pushed the sedan sideways and the car corrected. That gentle sway that tells you storms are practicing on the horizon. She tracked the edges of the road like a pilot watching for runway lights. Her calm made the car quieter. "You waiting on someone out there?" I asked. "Car trouble?" "Not anymore," she said. I tried to figure out if that sentence was relief or a small funeral. The Polaroid's colors were strange in the slant light. The grass too blue, the grill lid too black. The man's cap had a logo I recognized without knowing why. One of those minor league teams that rebrand every 10 years into animals that don't exist. A second later I realized it wasn't the cap. It was the shape of his left ear. The top folded slightly like a leaf that never committed to unfurling. I'd seen that ear before. On my brother-in-law. On my own father in photos. On myself in certain mirrors if I turned my head and caught the light wrong. "Where am I dropping you?" I asked, and the question came out tighter than I meant it. "Denver's fine," she said. "Close to downtown." "That's a lot of city for anywhere," I said, aiming at lightness and missing. She looked at me then fully, the way people do when they want you to understand. They've already seen the end of the conversation. "Close to downtown," she repeated gently and returned her eyes to the road. The Polaroid flashed in my peripheral like a tiny lighthouse every time sunlight found it. We stopped for gas in a place that sold bait and handmade quilts. and had a bulletin board full of lost dogs and guitars for sale. I paid inside because the pump didn't trust my zip code. When I came back, she was still, hands on the backpack, Polaroid exactly where it had been, like she'd been holding her breath and had only now remembered to exhale. "You sure you don't want water?" I asked again, and this time she took the bottle, unscrewed it without drinking, and set it untouched in the cup holder between us as if staging evidence. The sky went bruise purple fast. Denver's glow began doing that thing it does where it makes a dome over everything, false dawn in reverse. She didn't give directions until the last possible second. Small turns spoken like permissions. Next exit, left at the light. 2 more blocks, 3rd house after the stop sign. The neighborhood was the kind with porches and trees that arc into tunnels and strollers strapped to railings. Quiet, well kept, real. When I pulled to the curb, she didn't move. A porch light came on with the kind of timing that isn't timing at all. A shadow passed behind the textured glass of the door, paused, and the knob turned. She lifted the Polaroid with 2 fingers and for the first time held it out to me. "Do you recognize them?" she asked. I didn't take the picture. I couldn't. I said no. She smiled like that answer had been acceptable and opened the door. "Thanks, Evan," she said. "You did the right thing." My hands on the wheel felt suddenly complicated. I watched her climb the steps and do a small self-steadying breath like she was about to walk into a test she already knew the questions for. The door opened. A woman stood there. My sister. I hadn't seen my sister's house in 2 years. We'd been fine in the way adults are fine when jobs and time zones make confetti of intention. The porch plants were new. The wind chime was the same, sail carved from dark wood. Behind her, the entryway framed a narrow hallway with kid-height shoes collapsed in a favorite pile. She was mid-30s and tired in the way mothers are tired, beautiful and armed with lists. When she saw Hannah, a dozen expressions flashed in sequence like someone flipping through transparencies. Confusion, defensiveness, recognition, denial, grief, anger at herself for something she hadn't done yet. Then a softness I'd seen only twice. Once when her daughter was born, once when she said goodbye to our father. I was out of the car and on the sidewalk before I decided to be. "Jess?" I said pointlessly. She looked past the girl at me, startled and not startled, and tilted her head toward the house in a motion that meant do not make a scene on the sidewalk. Her husband appeared over her shoulder, the bookish steadiness of him a comfort I'd taken for granted and immediately needed. He saw me, he saw the girl. He put his hand on the doorframe the way men do when they decide to be a wall. Hannah spoke first. "I'm not here to make anything harder," she said. "I just need you to see that I chose right." My sister's hand found the edge of the door the way a person finds furniture in the dark. "Come inside," she said. Her voice had too many objects in it. "Please." I stayed on the porch because my body understood rules my brain hadn't parsed. This was not about me. Through the open door, I watched Hannah step into the entryway without touching anything. Backpack hugged close. She took in the framed prints on the wall, my niece's finger paintings, a photograph of Medicine Bow, a hand-lettered quote Jess had pretended not to love. My brother-in-law gestured toward the living room. They all sat, perched as if weight would trigger something. "What's this about?" he asked gently, though his eyes kept darting to the hallway like he was listening for small feet. Hannah placed the Polaroid on the coffee table. "You should keep this," she said. My sister didn't pick it up. She hovered above it like hovering could tell you whether a thing was safe. "Who are you?" she asked, because naming is the first kind of control. "I'm Hannah," she said. "I'm the phone call you got 8 years ago that said I changed my mind. I'm the reason you got your no before you got your yes. Silence has temperature. This one dropped 10 degrees. "We never met," Jess said, voice steady by will alone. "I know," Hannah said. "I read the letter they drafted for you. I didn't let them send it." My brother-in-law looked at me in the doorway like I might be able to hand him a tool. I had none. He looked at the Polaroid instead. "Where did you get this?" He asked. I took it, she said. Of us? Jess said, rocking forward. Of a choice, Hannah said. A fork in the road. I see ahead sometimes. Not everything. Just pictures. Like Polaroids. They're never labeled. I only know who's in them when I arrive. It was nonsense. Until it wasn't. Because my sister reached for the photo, hands shaking, and when her fingers touched the white border, she inhaled like cold water had found her lungs. This is our yard, she whispered. This is last June, which means... She turned the picture so I could accidentally see it from the porch. The ball cap ear, the hose, the exact green of the deck stain my brother-in-law had complained about for a week. And my niece, mid-spray, impossibly with the exact chipped front tooth she'd gotten 2 days before that barbecue. Hannah hadn't been there. I had taken that picture on my phone. It had never existed on paper. Please don't be mad at me, Hannah said, voice small now. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought a different house would be better. I was 17 and broke, and the man I loved thought buses were good places to sleep. Jess closed her eyes. Opened them. I'm not mad, she said, and the honesty of it broke me. I don't know what I am yet. The house made house sounds. Furnace hum, the soft thunk of a settling stair, the distant doing of dishes, automatic dishwasher, running late. They use the economy cycle and forget to hit dry. My niece's laugh freckled the air from a back room, a video playing on a tablet, a character singing a too bright song. Hannah flinched like the sound had hit her skin. You're not here to... My brother-in-law began, and stopped because the word take was a bomb. No, she said quickly, eyes wide with how awful that thought must have been in their house for years. No, I just needed to see the picture. I needed to know the one I saw is the one you live in. How did you find us? Jess asked. How did you find him? She jerked her chin toward me. I didn't, Hannah said, almost apologetic. He found me. He always would. I didn't realize I'd stepped fully inside until I felt the carpet under my shoes. Why me? I asked. You stop, she said simply. You always stop. That felt like a compliment and a condemnation. I wanted to argue with the word always. Instead, I asked, why the Polaroid? She exhaled in a way that sounded like surrender. Because paper keeps its promises. Screens lie. Paper remembers what it saw. Jess finally lifted the photo, turned it, touched the corner like you test a bruise. On the back and the bottom left, there was something faint in pencil. I leaned in. June 12th. Keep going. The handwriting was not mine. It wasn't Jess's either. My brother-in-law straightened, protective again. Are you in trouble, Hannah? He asked. Is someone looking for you? I'm always in trouble, she said with a small laugh that failed. But not the kind you can solve with a couch and a lock. I should go. Stay, Jess said reflexively, the way mothers do with any child, any age, even ones not theirs and too late to be. Hannah shook her head. I can't, I make room sharp if I stay. She stood. My sister stood. They faced each other. Two versions of a shape the world has never been kind to. Jess lifted a hand, hovered, then cupped Hannah's cheek with the awkward love of someone touching a word they've said in their head every week for 8 years. Hannah leaned into it like heat. Thank you, Jess whispered, for choosing something. Hannah nodded once, tears making her eyes glassy. You kept going, she said. I needed to see that. She left with the backpack hugged close, Polaroid left on the table like a votive. On the porch she paused. The streetlight buzzed on. A neighbor's sprinklers clicked. She touched the rail the way you touch a thing you'll remember later. Goodbye, Evan, she said without turning. How do I started. You don't, she said. You just keep stopping or you don't, both have a cost. She walked into the tunnel of trees and disappeared at the second shadow. When I looked up the street, there was no figure, just the ordinary lit evening of a city minding its own. In the morning, I called my mother and didn't mention anything she could use as a weapon. I went to the client meeting and sounded like a man who had watched his past and future sit on the same couch. They still gave us the contract. Life does what life does, Advances on all fronts regardless of the last scene. 2 days later, my sister sent a photo of the Polaroid now stuck to their fridge with a magnet shaped like a peach. "Tell me I'm not crazy," she texted. "Tell me this is real." I responded with the world's most useless sentence, "I saw it too." That evening she called. She wrote on the back, Jess said, voice small on the line. I didn't notice at first. The pencil was so faint. June 12th, keep going. June 12th was the day I almost quit my job. I was so tired. The kids were melting, the car's AC died, the grocery store was a battlefield. I wrote an email to my boss in notes and never sent it. That night is the backyard in the photo. I didn't quit. What do I do with that? Keep going, I said, hating the simplicity, loving it too. 3 weeks later, a padded envelope arrived at my apartment with no return address. Inside, a Polaroid of me and my sister as kids on our father's old porch, popsicles melting, our knees dirty, our faces the kind of uncomplicated joy you can't fake as an adult. I hadn't seen that image in 20 years. On the back, in the same pencil, "You keep stopping." Good. H. I did what you do with impossible gifts, set it on the bookshelf where it could bother me, tenderly every day. Sometimes at night I replay the drive to mile marker 223 and try to find the moment I could have chosen the other fork, the one where I didn't pull over and the road was easier and I showed up rested to a meeting and my sister never got the last piece of a story she'd been telling herself in loops. I can't find it. Even now, if I see a red backpack on a shoulder by a long flat road, my hand slides toward the turn signal like a body remembering a prayer. A month after Hannah visited, my brother-in-law called with voicemail energy even though I picked up. "You're not going to believe this," he said, "but you're the only one I can say it to without feeling ridiculous." He texted me a photo right after. Their daughter standing in the yard, hose in hand, the exact arc of water, the exact laugh. "I printed the one on Jess's phone," he said. I held them side by side. The picture Hannah left is the same image, but the angle is 6 inches higher. Like she was taller, like she was here. "Maybe she was," I said. "You think she'll come back?" he asked. "She already has," I said, and meant it about the photo. About Jess's softened mouth when she talked about June now. About the way a room changes when you admit the good thing you're in the middle of. I saw Hannah twice more. Once from the shoulder of I-80 where the land goes salt and the horizon is an opinion. She stood 2 exits past a rest area. Red backpack smaller now, hair shorter, face calmer. And I didn't stop because a state trooper had his lights on behind someone. And I didn't want my kindness to look like interference. She gave me the smallest nod without recognition or surprise, the nod of people who have already forgiven you in a future you haven't reached. The second time was in the produce aisle of a grocery store at 9:30 p.m., when only tired fathers and insomniacs shop. She reached past me for cilantro. "You're okay?" I asked because sometimes questions come out of your mouth without approval. "I'm what I should be," she said, a little smile. "You?" Still stopping, I said. "Good," she said. "The world needs roads and signs both." She left a Polaroid wedged under the lip of my windshield that night. A highway, dawn pinking the edges. A figure by a mile marker I couldn't make out. Thumb not extended, just a person existing exactly where I would be in an hour. On the back, "You don't have to fix them. Just notice." The next morning I drove past the mile marker and no one stood there. A hawk rode a thermal instead. It felt like a kind of instruction. Looking is its own work. If you want the clean ending where I tell you precisely who Hannah was beyond the draft of a life, I can't give it to you. I don't know who she loved or where she sleeps or whether she ever changed her mind back. I know she was 17 and then she wasn't. I know she carries a single photograph like a map that only updates when she arrives. I know she believed that paper kept its promises, and I have not yet found a good reason to argue. Sometimes, when I'm stuck in traffic on a 2-lane with no shoulder, and the summer heat makes everything seem possible and impossible. I take the Polaroid off my shelf and hold it by its white border and try not to blink at my father's porch long enough that I can feel that evening again. The cheap grape dye on our lips. The dog sleeping half in sun, half in shade. My sister leaning into me without noticing she leaned. If you stare long enough, the future stops feeling like a thing you chase and starts feeling like a thing that sometimes remembers to visit. I still stop for hitchhikers. Less bravely, more publicly, busy exits, stations with cameras, passenger window cracked only as far as kindness can reach. I let myself be the person who carries water in a cooler and a blanket in the trunk. It is not heroic. It is barely anything. But when I pull away, I check the mirror, and sometimes in the glass I see what looks like a red backpack, and I say out loud to nobody, "Keep going." And for once, the world and I agree. The storm had been following me since Kansas City. The kind of slow, lazy thunderhead that doesn't rush you. It just reminds you it's there. I'd been driving alone for 6 hours chewing sunflower seeds to stay awake, when the fuel light came on and my GPS lost service at the same time. The map froze, then blinked out completely, leaving nothing but static gray. When the next green sign appeared, Fairton, 3 miles, I took it without thinking. The town was small, the kind of place that still had a single diner and a blinking yellow light at the main intersection. The streets were too clean, too quiet. I pulled into the diner mostly for coffee and directions. The neon letters above the window buzzed unevenly. Half of them burned out so it just read, "Eat." Inside, a waitress with tired eyes handed me a menu laminated so long ago it was starting to warp at the edges. "You look like you've been driving all day," she said. "Feels longer," I said. "You know how to get back to Highway 19 West?" "My GPS died somewhere back there." She pointed her pencil toward the corner booth. "Ask him. He's from out that way." A man sat there, hands around a steaming cup. Mid-40s maybe, wearing a brown field jacket, dark jeans, and a cap with no logo. The kind of man whose face you forget as soon as you look away. When I walked over, he smiled faintly. "Lost?" "Just a little turned around," I said. "Trying to get back to 19 West." He nodded slowly, eyes on me in a way that made me feel like I'd already been part of this conversation before. "Bridge on 19 is closed," he said. "You'll want to cut across County 14 instead." He pulled a napkin from the dispenser, smoothed it flat, and started drawing with a pen from his pocket. The lines were quick, practiced. He added landmarks, a church, a water tower, and a mailbox with a cartoon cow on it. "Turn left at the tower, right at the church, left again at the cow," he said, sliding it over to me. "When you see grain silos, you've gone too far." "Thanks," I said, folding it carefully. He smiled again. "Roads are better when you don't fight them." It was such a strange sentence that I laughed out of confusion. "Sure, I'll remember that." When I turned to leave, he called after me. "Don't stop again until you hit 26. "Got it," I said, waving the napkin. Outside, the rain started again, soft, whispering against the roof of my car. I drove exactly as he'd told me. Left at the tower, right at the church, left at the cartoon cow. Everything matched perfectly, down to the broken fence by the road. The problem came 2 hours later, when I pulled into a gas station 50 miles away, and found the same man standing by the counter. Same face. Same cap, same half smile. Only his clothes were different. A navy hoodie instead of the field jacket. He looked up from his coffee, met my eyes, and said the same thing he had before. "Bridge on 19's closed. You'll want County 14 West." He held up a napkin, folded twice, and a pen in his other hand. "Want me to draw it out for you?" My stomach went cold. "We've already done this," I said quietly. He frowned politely, like I was joking. "Don't think so. You were in Fairton," I said. "You drew it for me there. This exact map," he blinked. "I've been on 26 all day." The air conditioner hummed too loudly. Somewhere behind the counter, the fridge rattled. I stared at his hands, clean, but a faint black line of pen ink marked his right thumb. He smiled again. identical to before. "Roads are better when you don't fight them," he said. I didn't answer. I just backed away out the door into the thin drizzle. The second I stepped outside, I realized something else. His truck, the same old tan Chevy I'd seen outside the diner, was parked beside my car. Same dented fender, same license plate. The gas station clerk was a woman in her 50s, reading a magazine behind the counter. I walked back in and asked her, "That guy in the hoodie, he's been here a while?" She glanced toward the coffee station. "Who?" "The man who just talked to me. He drew on a napkin, directions or something." She squinted like she thought I was teasing her. "Honey, you're the only person in here besides me." I turned. The booth was empty. The cup of coffee he'd been holding wasn't there. The seat wasn't even warm. I walked back to my car fast. The truck was still there, but the driver's side window was rolled down. The keys hung from the ignition, swaying slightly even though there was no wind. The napkin he'd drawn on lay on my dashboard. Except it wasn't the one from before. It was new. Fresh ink, folded differently. My name written neatly across the top in small block letters. Evan. I picked it up with shaking hands. The map was the same as before, but now there was a red X drawn on the curve near the church. Underneath it, he'd written one word: stop. I looked up. The road stretched out empty in both directions. When I glanced back, the truck was gone. For the next hour, I drove fast, chasing logic like it was something I could catch. I told myself it was a prank, that maybe I'd spaced out and imagined the repetition, or maybe there were twins, brothers who both worked near Fairton. Anything was better than the idea that something was moving faster than reason. At sunset, I saw the church from the napkin again. The one with the half-collapsed steeple and the sign out front that read, "Jesus still listens." The X on the napkin marked the curve right past it. I slowed, heart hammering, headlights cutting through the mist. Something lay in the road. I stopped, braked hard, and stepped out into the drizzle. A small pile of wet napkins sat in the center of the lane, each folded differently, ink bleeding in the rain. There were dozens, maybe more, all drawn by the same hand. Each one had my name on it. I didn't hear the footsteps until they were close. "Good," said a voice behind me. "You stopped this time." I spun, heart in my throat. It was him again. Same face, same soft smile, but now his eyes looked wrong, dilated too wide, reflecting the headlights in perfect circles. "What do you want from me?" I said. He tilted his head like he didn't understand the question. "You needed directions." "I don't," I snapped. "I know where I'm going," he smiled. "Not yet, you don't." Lightning flashed, bright enough to show the whole stretch of road. For a split second, there were shapes behind him. People blurred by the rain, standing perfectly still. I stepped back, but he moved closer. Calm, unhurried. "You always stop," he said softly. "That's good. That's why it works." "What works?" "The road," he said. "It doesn't like being forgotten." He handed me another napkin. This one was dry, folded perfectly. "You can go now. Just remember, roads are better when you don't fight them." When I looked down, the napkin was blank. When I looked back up, he was gone. The road was empty again. Only the drizzle and the quiet hum of my car idling. I got in, locked the doors, and drove until the rain became a wall. By the time I reached the next town, dawn was breaking. The napkin sat in the passenger seat, still dry. I opened it once, needing to see nothing written there. But something was. A single line in small block letters. "You stopped. You're part of the map now." I threw it out the window. But the next morning, when I opened my glove box to grab the registration, it was sitting there again, folded perfectly, waiting. And written in fresh ink, one new word appeared beneath the rest. Next. We'd been on the 2-lane for 5 hours, one of those western stretches where the radio fades into AM whispers and the horizon refuses to move. It was me driving, my roommate Cal navigating badly, and his sister Noor doing that quiet watchfulness people do when they don't trust a plan. A green sign promised a scenic view picnic area, 1 mile, and the orange fuel light had just winked on, so I took it. We weren't hungry. We needed to stop being the only moving thing for a minute. The turnout looked like a postcard that forgot to update. 2 sun-bleached concrete tables, a steel trash barrel, a grill with its grate missing, and a low dune of wind-blown sand piled against the curb like the desert testing a boundary. No other cars. No ranger truck. Wind hissed through rabbit brush, steady and uninterested. The sky was the color of nickel. We stretched. Cal walked to the guardrail to film a nothing view for his story. Noor stood by the hood counting bars. No service. I wandered to the sand because it looked out of place, the way a wave looks when it's traveled farther than it should. That's when I saw the corner. A black rectangle barely peeking out, maybe half an inch showing like a tile in the wrong floor. I would have missed it if the wind hadn't lifted the top layer and drawn a thin halo around the shape. "Hold up," I said. "There's something in here." Cal was already smiling like we'd found buried treasure. We dug with our hands, then with the plastic lid from a broken takeout container. Sand came away in cold sheets. A phone surfaced, modern, heavy, encased in one of those rubberized battery cases that makes a thing into a brick. Not cracked, not dirty. Its glass was so clean it reflected a warped version of my frown. "Someone dropped it," Cal said. "Nope," Noor said, crouching. "Someone packed it." She pointed to the hard edges in the sand, the tidy imprint you get when you press and smooth. Press and smooth like a kid making a sandcastle wall you don't want blowing down. I thumbed the side button out of reflex. The screen woke not to a lock screen or passcode but straight to the camera. Rear lens recording. Red dot pulsing in the corner like a patient heartbeat. Audio. Wind hiss, a far truck, a tiny grit skitter against glass. Whoever buried it had set it rolling and left it to watch. "Ah," I said. "It's still going." "That battery case," Noor said, tapping the bulge. "It could have been recording for hours." I stopped the recording because that's what you do when you find a camera pointing at your face. The gallery had only 6 clips. The oldest was time-stamped 1:12 p.m. The newest had stopped just now at 4:07. All the thumbnails looked the same. Low angle, asphalt edge, a sliver of lot. A lot of sky. Cal leaned in, breath fogging the glass. "Play 1. 12. The frame is the base of the trash barrel, the lip of the curb, heat shimmer. After a minute, an SUV noses in, idles, then pulls out. No one gets out. 2:19, a sedan arrives, doors stay shut. 2 shapes argue behind tinted glass, hands rising, falling, and then they leave. 3:03, a brown pickup pulls up crooked. Driver door opens an inch, shuts. The truck reverses, brakes, sits, then goes. No faces, no voices. Just arrivals and reconsiderations. Then 4:02, our stupid car, my stupid vanity plate. The camera shifts exposure and hunts until the letters on my grill are crisp. I walk into frame to stretch my back and tie a shoe. I make some dumb joke to Cal. My mouth moves, the wind erases it. Noor steps in, hair blown across her cheek, scanning the brush with that second brain caution she treats like a hobby. Us, documented by a device we didn't know existed 2 minutes ago. "This feels like a wildlife cam," Cal said, but he wasn't laughing now. "Except the animals are us." Noor pointed at the sand again where glittering chips mixed with grains. I pinched one. It cut my fingertip. "Glass," she said. "From another lens? Or a different phone? Maybe a broken protector," I said, but my voice was wrong. The sand held other inclusions, stiff black fibers like frayed nylon. The wind licked the pile as if to erase our curiosity. "What do we do?" Noor asked. "Leave it, take it? Smash it?" "People film time lapses," Cal said, weak. "Projects art that hides the camera under the sand?" Noor said. The wind shifted. The emptiness hummed like a power line beyond hearing. "We get to people," I said. "Then we decide." We walked fast to the car. the phone between my palms like an offering I didn't want to own. As we pulled out, I glanced back. Across the highway on the opposite shoulder, a white panel van sat with its hazards on. Could have been there all along. Could have just arrived. As we merged, the hazards clicked off. The van didn't move. The phone buzzed in my lap. I flinched. Emergency alert slid down the screen with a tone I didn't hear because my stomach made its own. There was no SIM, so how was it getting anything? For a second, words scrolled and vanished. I only caught the end. Go back, nope, I said out loud to whoever or whatever wanted that. And we didn't. For 15 minutes we were quiet. Then another buzz, new video saved. The new clip wasn't the lot. It was inside a fluorescent place, aisle of jerky and chips, cooler doors glossy. The camera was low, as if held at waist height. The angle tipped and a reflection flashed in the cooler glass. A tan baseball cap. A jawline I didn't recognize because it belonged to nobody I knew. The shot drifted. A gloved hand flipped a bag of jerky, replaced it neatly, gloved like you'd be for cold or for prints. Then the frame rolled onto a stainless door stenciled employees only. Cut, there's no service, Noor said. No Wi-Fi. So how? I checked settings. Emergency calls only. Device name owner. No networks. Location unknown. The battery case's LED showed sickly green. 67%. Ahead, like a visual answer, the same brand station from the video appeared. Same paint, same stack of firewood caged in wire, same crooked squeegee. No way, Cal said. The white van rolled by 2 cars behind, unhurried. We pulled in anyway because light is a reflex. Inside, a teenager ran the register with the detached focus of someone letting time do the heavy work. A black dome camera watched the counter. Another watched the aisle where the cooler reflection had been. We bought fuel because pretending helps. Cameras working? I asked. He shrugged. Corporate's supposed to fix them. They're like pending. Anyone buy a prepaid phone today? Noor asked casually. He pointed to a locked acrylic case of prepaid devices that promised privacy in minutes like candy. Dude in a tan cap got one an hour ago, he said. Cash smelled like lighter fluid. Not judging. We left with gas and nothing useful. The van was gone. In its place under the far light, a silver sedan idled, driver staring at his lap like reading a script. We pulled onto the highway because people feel safer than alone. 6 miles later, the found phone buzzed again. New video saved, 4:33 p.m. I tapped it because curiosity is a currency you always overspend. The clip opened on our back seat, Noor's hoodie, the plastic grocery bag, the edge of Cal's cap. The phone was filming from the seat back pocket behind me, tilted to catch our shapes and the road's hum as if the car had eyes. The frame drifted toward the window, catching my hand on the wheel, my thumb's stupid tapping habit, the side of my face when the light hit just right. The clip ended on the black mirror of the screen itself, an impossible Escher moment. A camera filming a camera from inside the car while I held that camera in my lap. I pulled the seat pocket inside out with one hand while keeping the car straight. Nothing. Fabric. Crumbs. No second device. No lens, no trick, Sheriff, I said. Now. The county substation was a brick rectangle with flags and parking lines bleached to chalk. The sign on the door said hours 8 to 5 and it was 4:41. Noor hit the intercom and a voice buzzed us in with the crisp patience of people who deal with both emergencies and theatrics. The lobby smelled like coffee and damp jackets. A woman with a neat bun waved us to metal chairs and took the story without blinking, the way medical staff hold life still while you point at pain. I set the phone on a rubber mat like contraband. We found it buried at a picnic turnout, I said. It was recording. It has us, other cars, then 2 clips we didn't take. One inside a store we stopped at later. One inside our car while I was holding it. A deputy came out, mid-30s. Decent boots. Steady face that suggested he'd had stranger afternoons. He put on nitrile gloves that squeaked faintly and tried power cycling. The phone ignored him. He opened the gallery and watched the last clip, the view of our back seat. He didn't say no way or you're messing with me. He just breathed out through his nose in the professional register that covers astonishment and annoyance. Any identifiers? He asked. No SIM, I said. Device name is just owner. Battery pack's keeping it alive. He scrolled the earlier files. SUVs arriving, leaving. The pickup that couldn't decide. Our car. The fluorescent aisle. Cameras at that station are down, he said, like confirming a weather report. Clerk said a guy in a tan cap bought a prepaid. He nodded. We hear about them. People set hooks where folks slow down. The shoulder, the scenic turnouts, low cell zones. Sometimes it's theft. Sometimes it's worse. Sometimes it's just creeps collecting lives they never lived. Is this mirrored? Nor asked. Like, can someone piggyback the camera and send it stuff? It said new video saved right when he held up a hand. Could be the phone's rigged with automation. Could be remote triggers. Could be the case has its own logic. Could be a magic trick. I've learned not to decide too early. He bagged the phone, sealed it with tape, wrote a date with a Sharpie. We'll image it, he said. See if we can pull metadata. Thank you for bringing it. And if anyone asks you about a phone, we didn't find it, I said, catching up. Exactly. We gave statements that made our day sound like a list of nouns. He took our numbers and slid a card across the counter with a case number already sweating in ink. Go to people if you think you're being followed, he said. Stations with cameras. No scenic stops after dusk. Don't argue with the part of you that's scared. We stepped back into evening. The air had shifted warmer, like the day was pretending it could undo its earlier mood. Cal drove. Nor watched the mirrors with a steadiness that made me grateful and uneasy. I turned my own phone face down because the world is full of screens and one of them had just learned my face without permission. 3 miles out, my phone pinged with a news alert. I flinched, then hated that I flinched. Authorities investigate suspicious device at scenic pull-off. The story was short and sure of itself in the way first stories are. Hikers found a camera. Officials removed equipment. No ongoing threat. A photo showed our turnout from a flattering angle. The sand pile cropped like an innocent dune. Nor laughed without humor. We were there an hour before the hikers. The deputy called at 8:04. We went back, he said. Found a second phone 20 yards down under sage. Newer case. Same setup. Found a third half-melted underbrush. Someone tried to burn it last season and got bored or spooked. We pulled everything before the press did their tidy version. What are they recording for? Cal asked on speaker. Patterns? Plates? Patterns, the deputy said. Who stops? How long? Which direction you look first? Whether you get out alone. Whether your trunk is full. Whether you put your phone in your pocket or on the table. That's a lot to learn from a curb, I said, hating how matter-of-fact my voice landed. They've been doing it a while, he said. The execution's getting cleaner. He paused. Papers rustled. There was a night clip on yours you didn't see yet, he added. It was buried when the moon lit the edge of the lot. The camera. Slides, no hand. Just the image shifting like it was pulled a foot or two. Wind doesn't do that without dust. The sand moved, but it moved like a sheet. Line? Nor said maybe, he said. Or a bored coyote with a fishing degree. Could be anything. I'm not marrying a theory yet. We reached a motel whose sign promised clean rooms like that was a brag. The clerk handed us 2 key cards and warned us about the ice machine humming like an airplane. We deadbolted, chained, put a chair under the knob because ritual helps. Cal checked the peephole on a schedule only he knew. Nor pulled the curtains too tight. I opened the nightstand Bible and put the deputy's card inside it like talisman meets talisman. At 2:13 a.m., someone tapped on the wall, 3 soft knocks, spaced like a reflex. We froze, no footsteps, no whisper. Just the refrigerator cycling and the AC sighing like an old dog. We pretended we slept after that and did not. Morning smoothed everything. The world had the audacity to be ordinary. Coffee tasted like coffee. Our car was where we left it. A white van rolled by on the frontage road that now clearly belonged to a plumber, name and number proudly painted in royal blue. The frightening things in daylight had jobs and invoices and reviews. At noon, the deputy called again. "We popped the case," he said. "The phone's IMEI ties back to a bulk lot registered to a shell for an installer chain. Translation: paperwork without a person. No owner info. The videos are on device, no cloud. There's a script to auto-open the camera and save clips to a special folder. Whoever set it up wanted it brain-dead and obedient. Can you trace who bought the prepaid back at the station?" Nor asked. "We'll try," he said. "But those cases sell to cash and strangers." We did pick up a guy 2 counties over trying to fence 3 similar phones behind a bowling alley. Tan cap in his trunk. Gloves in a box. He says he found them. I don't arrest people for found it unless I can prove they didn't. We're watching. I thanked him because it's what you do when professionals admit limits. He thanked us back for being boring enough to leave. That evening, a padded envelope waited at our apartment door with no return address. Inside, a rubber battery case empty, sand still clinging to its lip. No note, we turned it in. The deputy sighed like a man whose day had reset. Nor taped a sticky note to our dashboard. No scenic pull-offs after dark. Cal joked it needed a skull icon. She added one and it wasn't a joke. 3 nights later, my phone buzzed at 7:12 p.m. Unknown, 1 attachment, while I was home on the couch. I tapped against my better judgment. The image showed the same picnic area at dusk from the low angle we knew too well. Table, barrel, dune. In the lower left, a gloved hand blurred like the photographer was standing up. The timestamp ticked to 7:13. The photo vanished. No thread, no sender. I stared at the blank screen until it reflected a stranger's face that was mine. We didn't go back. It felt like a rule the place had given us: you get 1 mercy exit. I took interstates even when the map whispered backroads would save 7 minutes. 7 minutes is how long it takes to become scenery. We stopped only at stations with too much light. Lobbies with bored clerks, bathrooms with keys on cinder blocks. I bought a dash cam and let it sit in the box for a week while I negotiated with my own superstition. Then installed it like a person pretending to be modern again. 2 weeks later, news sites ran a cooler, cleaner write-up. Authorities remove observation devices from state pull-offs. The sheriff's quote hit all the safe notes. Public not in danger, investigation ongoing, thank you for your vigilance. The comment sections did what comment sections do. Argued about privacy, blamed kids, blamed transients, blamed the government for both overreach and neglect. None of that mattered at the curb where anonymous wind rearranged anonymous sand around anonymous choices. What mattered was this. The idea worked because we worked. People pull over for mystery faster than for mercy. If I'd seen a cardboard sign that said help, I would have been cautious, maybe called it in. But a buried phone? We made ourselves responsible to it. We dug, we touched. We became part of the project the moment curiosity beat sense. The deputy called one last time with the kind of update that is both everything and nothing. "We got a warrant for footage from highway cams near your turnout," he said. We tracked a white panel van in and out on 3 separate days. Different plates each time. 2 stolen, 1 bent, 1 plate frame hiding a digit. Could be the same van you saw, could be cousins. One time, paired sedan follows volunteers to their motel and peels off when they enter the lot. Not enough for charges. Enough to make me post a car there on weekends. "Do you think it's a crew?" I asked. "I think it's people who don't like working for their stories," he said. "I think they drift between states and swap hats." "Why the inside the store clip?" Nor asked on speaker. "Why inside our car?" "Proof of proximity," he said. "A game or a tell? Or both?" After we hung up, I drove alone to a client site and passing mile markers started to feel like counting heartbeats. Useful when you can't sleep. A hitchhiker stood by 223 with a red backpack, thumb low. Not demanding, just existing. I didn't stop. That's not a moral stance. It's a math one. I called the highway patrol and let their system take custody of my virtue. That night at the motel, I knocked on the wall 3 times by accident while plugging in the travel kettle. I laughed into an empty room and hated that it didn't feel funny. I checked under the bed like a child, then the closet like a worse one. Empty space made its case. The dash cam's red LED blinked like an old lighthouse. The chair under the knob did nothing and everything. If you want an ending where a badge pulls a man in a tan cap from a van full of phones, I can't give you that. What I can give you is the habit we kept. We don't stop at scenic pull-offs unless there are minivans and retirees and a dog tied to a bumper licking the wind. We don't chase mysteries that advertise themselves. We call things in and let professionals carry the boredom of sorting true danger from theater. Every once in a while, at a rest area with a metal sculpture pretending to be wheat, I'll see someone crouched near the curb, brushing sand with their hand in that absent way people touch water. I'll want to say something, don't. But it's not polite to bark at strangers, and warning sounds too much like invitation. So I stand by the vending machines, pretend to choose between 2 versions of salt, and make myself visible. People behave differently when they know they're observed. It's the only leverage I trust anymore. A month after the envelope with the empty case, Cal found a second in our mailbox. Another battery case, same make. This one with a hairline crack and grains of sand fused into the rubber-like glitter. No note. He set it on the counter like a dead insect. Norse slid it into a zip-top bag and wrote the date in block letters like an archivist reluctantly taking a job. Sometimes, when my phone buzzes with a random push alert, I feel that penny taste at the back of my tongue and check the sender like a gambler checking dice. It's always sports or weather or the bank telling me about a new feature. But the first half second before the content renders, I see that picnic area again. Concrete table, crooked barrel, the slow dune that keeps moving even when nothing else does. I see our car pull in and us unfolding like animals after a long ride, stretching the same human stretch people do in every decade. I think about how easy it is to become part of someone else's archive. Paper keeps its promises, Hannah told me once in a different story. Phones keep their appetites. Sand keeps its secrets until wind decides otherwise. If you find one buried at the edge of a public place, believe the most boring version first. It's bait. Believe the worst version second, you're the show. Either way, get to people. Get to light. Give the mystery to a room with fluorescent bulbs and forms. And if a device you don't own starts showing you your own face from angles you didn't invite, don't argue with your fear like it's being dramatic. Fear is a map. It's the one that points you back to the road with lanes and lights and witnesses. We still drive. The world didn't get smaller. We just learned which views are worth missing. I'd been driving for 10 hours through rain so thick it erased the road behind me. The GPS had lost signal somewhere outside Idaho, and I'd convinced myself I could make the next city before midnight. But when the wipers started smearing instead of clearing, I gave up and took the first exit with light. There wasn't much there. 2 gas stations, a half-dead diner, and a small motel crouched behind a row of black pines. The sign buzzed through rain. Pinecrest Inn, vacancy. The lobby smelled like coffee, lemon cleaner, and years of tired people. Behind the counter sat a woman in her 50s, hair sprayed solid, cardigan perfectly folded. Her name tag said Marge. Rough night, she said like she already knew. Just need a room. One night, she slid a real ledger toward me in actual guestbook pages lined for name, address, vehicle, room. I hadn't seen one since childhood. I filled it in by habit. Evan Carter, Portland, Silver Accord, room 12. When I lifted my pen, my stomach dropped. My name was already there, written neatly on the line above mine. Same name, same address, same car. Guess you had another Evan Carter this week, I joked, though my voice cracked. Marge peered down and said calmly, "Must have copied it from the old sheet by mistake. Happens." She tore off my receipt. Room 12. Keys metal. Try not to lose it. I took the blue tag with 12 stamped in it and headed out through the rain. Her voice followed me. "If you need a wake-up call, I can knock. Phones go down in storms. What time? 2:13, she said automatically, then caught herself. Or, whenever. Room 12 was exactly what you expect from a roadside motel. Beige walls, stale air, carpet that kept its secrets. I threw my bag down and checked the window. Curtain too short. A slice of light bleeding in from the walkway. On the desk sat a laminated note card that read, "Tell tomorrow's you what you need." I smirked, grabbed the pencil and wrote, "Get up early. Keep going. Check the river. If it's high, take 84. I slid the card under the glass blotter and got ready for bed. When I lifted the Bible from the nightstand, a folded receipt fluttered out. Same logo, same room number. Evan Carter, room 12, 3 nights ago. The signature looked almost like mine, neater, patient. I sat frozen on the bed, rain whispering on the roof. Someone tried my doorknob. Just once, a metallic tick too slow to be wind. I went to the peephole, nothing, then the phone rang. An old beige landline, 2 short rings like it was hesitant. "Front desk," Marge's voice said. "This is your wake-up call." I glanced at the clock. 2:13 a.m. "I didn't ask for one," I said. "You always do." The line clicked dead. Outside, footsteps paced slowly past my window. 6 steps, pause, 6 steps back. I waited until dawn, pretending I was just tired. By morning, the rain had softened into drizzle. I packed ready to check out, rehearsing how to bring up the duplicate receipt without sounding insane. Marge was at the desk, stirring coffee. "Sleep all right?" "Strange dreams," I said, sliding the receipt across. "Found this under the Bible from 3 nights ago." She glanced down. "Room 12, same name. Maybe we had twins." I smiled without meaning it. "It's got my plate number." "I never write that." She didn't answer, just flipped the ledger open. My line from last night sat on the page, fresh ink. Above it, the other Evan. And below them both, on the next day's blank sheet in faint pencil, was my name again. Already written, waiting for me. I pointed. "What's that?" "Reservation hold," she said too quickly. I didn't make one. "You will," she said. "I should have left then." But I asked the other Evan what happened to him. She looked out the window where rain was starting again. "He left something behind. A photograph." She reached under the counter and handed me a Polaroid. Kids playing in a backyard. Sunlight caught in water spray. A man and woman laughing. My sister's house. My niece, my family. On the back, written in pencil. June 12th, keep going. I almost dropped it. "Where did you get this?" "Room 12, she said. "You left it for yourself." I left without another word. The sky was brightening, but the road felt heavier. At the intersection, 2 choices. Left to the highway, right to the old road behind the feed store. On the desk last night, I'd written, "Check the river. If it's high, take 84. But when I peeked at my note this morning, new handwriting had appeared under mine. "If the river's high, don't take 84. Take the old road." Same phrasing, just inverted. I hesitated, then turned right. 10 miles later, flashing lights blocked the highway ramp. Floodwaters over the lanes. Troopers waving cars away. I kept driving, not sure if I was lucky or trapped in somebody's prediction. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Front desk," Marge's voice said. "You forgot your card." I checked out. "Not that card," she said. "Your comment card." The line went silent. The rain returned like it had been waiting. I stopped at a diner an hour down the road, needing normal noise. When I asked for the check, the waitress handed me a laminated bill with an ad on the back. Pinecrest Inn, clean, quiet, weekly rates. Under it, faint pencil marks, 2:13. That's when I realized this wasn't about the motel. It was about time. About repetition. I decided to drive back. Not because I wanted to, but because the road felt like it was folding in on itself. When I pulled into the lot, the neon sign flickered steady for the first time. Vacancy glowing white. Marge was at the counter again, calm as ever. "Welcome back," she said. "You kept my key," I said. "You brought it," she corrected. She opened the ledger. My penciled-in name now solid ink. "Room 12's waiting." She handed me the same blue tag. "Wake-up call at 2:13? Knock instead," I said. "Good choice." Room 12 hadn't changed. But the comment card under the glass had new writing in my hand. "If you leave, take the photograph with you." I checked my wallet. The Polaroid was still there, only now the note on the back had one more word written lighter than the rest. "Keep going back." I laughed softly. "Not tonight," I told the empty room. At 2:13 the knock came. 3 slow taps, patient and polite. I didn't answer. The tapping stopped. Morning came like nothing had happened. I packed again and handed Marge my key. "Paid in full?" I asked. She stamped my receipt, paid. "You'll leave something anyway," she said gently. "Everybody does." I glanced down. The Polaroid was missing from my wallet. In its place was my own handwriting on motel paper. "Leave the key. Keep the road." I dropped the key on her counter and walked out. The sky had cleared, the world washed sharp and new. In the rearview mirror, the Pinecrest sign flickered once more, then went dark completely. At 2:13 that night, my phone rang in another motel 3 states away. A woman's voice said softly, "This is your wake-up call." I whispered, "I didn't ask for one." She replied, "You always do." The line clicked, and somewhere out there, in room 12, a new name was already written, waiting for me. I was 3 hours past the point where caffeine stops being a plan and starts being a dare. The interstate had unspooled into that late-night ribbon where semis carry the world forward, and the rest of us pretend we're part of it. I should have booked a motel in the last town. I told myself that 3 times, then told myself I could make the next one. At 1:41 a.m., the green sign with a sleeping icon finally won. Rest area, 1 mile. The lot was brighter than the night deserved. Banks of LEDs. A low brick building with vending machines humming to themselves. A line of tractor trailers sleeping nose out like cattle at a river. I clicked into a space under a light, locked the doors twice, and killed the engine. The sudden silence made my blood sound loud. My rules for car sleeping were simple. Seat pushed back but not flat. Keys where my hand knows to find them. Phone on airplane with alarm set. Pepper spray on the door pocket where muscle memory lives. I texted my sister, "Made it, dog nap. Call if I don't ping at 3:30. Then slid the phone face down and tried to make my body understand that a compact car can be a room if your need is bigger than your comfort. The first 20 minutes were the kind where you think you aren't sleeping until you wake. I surfaced at 2:07 a.m. to someone's diesel juggling gears. A couple argued softly by a soda machine, their posture doing most of the talking. The glass fogged lightly from my breath. I wiped a circle clear with the sleeve of my hoodie and decided I was fine. The clock on my dash read 2:11. 2 minutes later, someone tapped my window. Not a full knock, just the gentlest polite fingernail tap against glass. I did what you do, froze, then leaned an inch, then told myself it was a moth, a branch, a piece of the night wanting to be noticed. Then it came again. Tap, tap, tap. 3 in a slow rhythm that knows it's being counted. 2:13 glowed on my dash like an answer to a question I didn't know I'd asked. I turned my head and saw her. She stood in the LED spill like she'd stepped out of a rain the rest of us had missed. Drenched hair pasted to her cheeks, hoodie soaked to midnight, jeans darker with water, shoes leaving small black moons on the pavement. Her face was my face, not like a cousin or a bad camera angle. My face, the one I'm surprised by in bathroom mirrors after hard days. Even the old scar at my eyebrow, the barely crooked nose from high school soccer, the exact wrongness of how my mouth turns when I'm trying not to cry. She didn't speak. She didn't mouth words. She just lifted a hand and rested her palm on the glass inches from mine. Fingers splayed in the same way my palm does when I'm checking whether a window is hot. I reached for the ignition, like that meant something. Keys turned. Nothing happened. The car's systems woke up, dash lights, the cheerful seatbelt man lighting, but the starter didn't engage. I tried again, heart dropping in that elevator way your body uses to rehearse bad news. Nothing. The car was not dead so much as unwilling. Outside, she tilted her head, my tilt when I'm deciding whether to forgive, and tapped again, knuckle to glass. So lightly it felt like she was asking the window for permission instead of me. I hate this about myself, but I moved closer. I cupped my hands to the glass the same way kids do at aquariums. Her face met mine on the other side, an optical illusion made of sameness. Eyes level, breath fog matching breath fog. For a second we were a hinge and the car was the door. She lifted her other hand, curled a finger and wrote on my window through the fog I'd left. Don't open. Not open, as in the door. Open as in any. The word felt bigger than the action. She glanced over my shoulder at the passenger side and my body obeyed before my brain parsed. I craned right. The passenger window had fog too, but from the wrong side. Inside, 5 long streaks downward like someone had pressed and dragged. I hadn't seen it because fear makes you stare where fear came from. A trucker across the lot clicked his hazards on. 4 steady blinks. A human metronome. The drenched me looked at the flash, then back at me, and for the first time her mouth moved. No sound. Just one word my lips knew how to read because they had learned the shape with mine. Please. I nodded like a person agreeing to a contract she doesn't remember signing. I kept my hands visible. I didn't open anything. I let the engine pretend it wanted to work while I did the only helpful thing left. I locked my eyes on my own face until panic felt like an observer instead of a driver. She lifted her hand from the glass. The heat of her palm left a perfect oval that made my breath small. She looked toward the far end of the lot. I followed her eyes. A white panel van sat under a dead light with its engine off. The kind with no logos and 100 excuses. When I looked back, she had stepped away from the window, already a darker outline in the electric day. She was walking toward the building, not hurried, calm in a way that felt learned under duress. I let her go because everything about her told me that going had cost her less than convincing me. 2 minutes later, a highway patrol cruiser rolled up the on-ramp like it had been waiting just off stage for its cue. Blue lights washed the concrete. The van's interior light flicked on, then off, then on again. Someone forgetting how their theater worked. The cruiser pulled behind it. The van started, lurched, died. The trooper stepped out, hand near, not on his belt. He said something I couldn't hear. The van's door opened 6 inches. Closed. Opened. A man got out, hands visible, eyes the flat gray of always having a reason. I watched until I needed to stop being the kind of person who thinks glass is a spell. I stayed. I didn't open. At 2:19, I looked back to the brightness where she'd gone. My twin wasn't there. My window held her handprint like a question the night had chosen not to answer. By 2:28, a second cruiser joined the first. The troopers talked low and efficient with the man beside the white van. A third person sat in the passenger seat, too still. They didn't bring him out. The trucker who'd blinked hazards tossed a look to my car and did a palms up, "You good?" gesture. I nodded, both thanks and apology for needing his attention. I meant to leave. I meant to be the person who doesn't become a spectator at her own life. But curiosity is a currency and fear spends it fast. I cracked the driver's window a finger width, not open. Just enough to pull air that wasn't my own breath. The night smelled like wet brake pads and a hint of the Swedish metal scent I've only known at hospitals and deer strikes. Something buzzed. I flinched like it had been a horn. It was just my dash cam powering on. I'd installed it last month after a friend's insurance fought one accident like it was a duel. It records on motion when the car's off. Apparently my fear counted as motion. The tiny screen flickered, then showed a thumbnail grid of clips. The latest had a timestamp, 02/13/02. I tapped the screen. The view was from the camera stuck by my rear view. In the grain, my car looked like a small animal having a thought. The building's light blew the center to white. Then, like a figure resolving in fog, she stepped into frame from the left, a soaked version of me. Hair a darker argument, hoodie dripping, mouth set. She turned toward my car. She lifted her hand. She touched the glass. The knock came through the microphone as 3 shy consonants. I watched myself in the driver's seat wake, wipe, lean. The two of us mirrored across technology small enough to fit in a pocket. I rewound. I noticed what adrenaline hides. A flicker of movement at the very bottom edge, passenger side. Dark arcs rising, then falling too slowly for rain. Fingers inside dragging downward like a bored child if you remove the part where I ever let a child into my locked car. I scrubbed forward. She wrote, "Don't open" on my fog. I didn't see the words form in real time. The camera saw the letters appear in faint strokes. A second hand. From inside, tracing her motions a heartbeat late. Like my own fear had learned to write. I yanked the passenger visor down, expecting to find anything. A face, a tell. A camera bigger than my insistence that the world is physical. Just the vanity mirror and the sticker warning me airbags aren't suggestions. On the dash, a red voicemail dot glowed on my phone like someone had turned on a lighthouse in my pocket. I thumbed it against better judgment. The transcription tripped. "This is unintelligible, Seeing State Patrol. If you are still at mile marker 47 westbound, do not repeat, do not open, units en route. If you need honk and flash, repeat, do not open." The message had a timestamp 2 minutes before the cruiser arrived. The number was blocked, a tap on glass again. Soft. Not at my door. At the back window. I twisted slower than choice. In the reflection, I saw only my own eyes. Wide in ways that don't photograph well. I hit the hazard lights twice. Some need to be part of the choreography. The trucker across the way nodded and swung his cab a few feet, angling so his grill pointed into my space like a guard dog. The van's passenger door opened as if responding to a cue that wasn't mine. A woman got out. Not drenched. Her hair in a tight ponytail. Shoulders squared. She looked over once, not at me, but at the building's camera. She lifted both hands, palms out. And the troopers did that dialogue you can do with a dozen gestures and a few steps and the power of daytime attached to night. My dash cam saved another clip. 802.1944. I hit play. The frame caught something I hadn't seen with my eyes. A third person at the far edge under the dead light, moving slow along the curb as if counting drains. Only visible when their phone screen lit and then went dark. Lit and then went dark like someone trying to time a start. My phone buzzed again, no number. A text with no contact. "Are you safe?" I typed yes, and "who is this?" deleted both, typed yes. Not opening, hit send. 3 dots appeared like a heartbeat under a blanket. Then nothing. I looked for her, the drenched me, expecting her to be watching from the doorway like a ghost measuring her investment. She wasn't there, in the mirror. My face looked older by a day. I put the car in accessory and rolled the driver's window down another centimeter because the glass had filmed again and I wanted the world's air even if it wasn't an improvement. The night came in measuring spoons. Across the lot, one trooper put the man in the van into the back of his car with the politeness you save for stairs. The other talked to the woman long enough that the woman's shoulders learned a new angle. The one between cooperation and rehearsed innocence. The third person at the curb dissolved into the absence under a light that didn't work. My hazard lights felt embarrassing suddenly, like a confession. I turned them off and my car shrank a size. At 2:31, the white van started, different with someone else inside, and drove off behind the cruisers. The trucker cut his hazards, lifted a 2-finger salute off his wheel, moved forward and reparked in the row of patient machines. The rest area did what rest areas always do. Pretended nothing had happened so the rest of us could get on with the business of pretending sleep and motion are the same. I should have left right then. I should have followed the tail of authority to daylight. I told my bones to become decisions. They did not. Instead, I watched the dash cam one more time. Not because I wanted more data, but because a part of me needed to see my own face be warned by a face I recognized more than my reflection. When the clip reached the part where she wrote on my window, I paused. The letters blurred a moment, reformed a fraction lower. A second line of writing, fainter underneath, "Don't open again." At 3:07 a.m. I gave up on pretending to nap and drove to the next town, where a motel promised trucker rates on a sign that had lost its R. The clerk handed me a key card and a room number that I now count like a prayer. Not 12. I brushed my teeth longer than is reasonable just to have something unambiguous to do. When my phone buzzed with a new voicemail, I thought it was my sister, worried because I hadn't pinged. It was the patrol dispatch. A calm voice leaving a case number and a suggestion to call if I had any non-emergency recollection. The phrase made me laugh into the sink. Nothing about the night felt non or recollection. I pulled the curtain shut, clicked the latch, and only then noticed the oval of a handprint at the height of my head on the motel window. On the inside, palm smooth, fingers long. A smudge at the base of the thumb where my grip is imperfect. I hadn't touched the glass. I told myself housekeeping had. I told myself 100 things that were useful precisely because they didn't need to be true. Sleep was short and shallow. I dreamed of identical parking lots stitched together by off-ramps, each one waiting with a version of me in a different weather, knocking the way a person knocks when they want to borrow time. In the morning, daylight made the world humble again. Coffee tasted like something invented by someone who believed in mercy. I wiped the inside of my window clean. The smudge didn't lift completely. Glass remembers. On the way out of town, I stopped at a gas station whose camera dome blinked a red light that convinced me we were all on the same side. The clerk, a woman about my age with a square jaw and a saint's tolerance for lottery customers, glanced at my restless scanning and said, "You from the rest area?" Like it was a small town and last night was the only news. "Yeah," I said, and then, because I wanted her to be part of my memory, "Thank you for having coffee." She handed my change back. "They've been working that exit on and off for months," she said. "Move along when patrol shows. Folks get curious and talk themselves into mistakes." "What happens at 2:13? I asked, and immediately hated that I'd said the number like it had meaning outside my car. Her face did a small math. "Is that when she knocks?" "Who?" "The one who looks like you," she said plainly, like explaining weather. "People say that. Always the same words on the glass. You're not the first who didn't open. Good." I stood there without fully being in my shoes. "You've heard this before." "Not just heard," she said. She reached under the counter and slid over a photocopied sheet with the store's name at the top. Traveler Safety Reminders. Halfway down, sandwiched between locked doors while fueling and back into spaces, a bullet point someone had added in pen. "If you stop after 2 a.m., set an alarm, and if someone knocks, don't open." Someone had underlined "don't." 3 times I asked the thing I should have led with. Why drenched? "2 exits east, there's a low bridge," she said. "Road floods fast. Last spring a car went into the culvert. Girl your height." She got out. Folks say she went window to window before patrol came. After that, sometimes... She made a vague motion that meant explanations cost more than understanding. Could be stories. Could be a way to make people cautious. Could be both. I drove west with the window down an inch and the radio low enough to hear my own engine. At noon, my sister called, voice bright and trying not to be thin. I told her the short version on purpose. The version you can tuck away without it cutting you when you reach for something else in the drawer. She said, "I hate rest stops," and I said, "Me too." And neither of us mentioned we'll both use one again someday because the world is built like that. 2 nights later, in a different state, I pulled into a crowded rest area at 11:50. Minivans, dogs on leashes, a picnic table occupied by a family spreading late sandwiches. I parked nose out, texted here, alarms, and let myself sleep while people made people noises around me. At 12:43, a group of teenagers laughed too big and a ranger shushed them, and I smiled in my sleep, because kindness is sometimes volume control. At 2:13, my phone alarm went off, a small joke I'd made with myself. I hit dismiss and looked at my window without moving. No knock, no handprint. The glass was ordinary glass, reflecting a woman who had made a ritual out of a bad hour. I almost laughed. Then from 2 rows over, 3 soft taps. Not mine, someone else's. I sat up. Across the way, a compact car identical to mine sat under a light. In the driver's seat, a woman rubbed a circle into fog with her sleeve, leaned to it and met her own face. They held that mirror long enough for me to decide where I belonged in the scene. I got out. I did not approach. I walked to the vending machine deliberately and bought a bottle of water because doing is better than watching. I checked the lot like it was a checklist. No panel vans, 2 troopers by the building, a custodian emptying trash with a rhythm that was its own safety. I made eye contact with the nearest ranger and did the smallest head tilt toward the row with the knock. He read it because reading people is his job. He nodded and started walking that way, not fast enough to frighten, fast enough to matter. By the time I turned back, the drenched one had stepped away. The driver had kept her window closed, and the ranger had become the useful shape between them and whatever comes next. I got back in my car and set an alarm for 3:30 anyway because fear likes schedules. You want a clean ending? I do too. I want to say the van's plates were traced, the man with the gray eyes was charged, the woman in the passenger seat called her mother and said, "Come get me," and was God. Some of that happened on different nights, to different people in different counties. All of it will keep happening in places with bathrooms and maps under plexiglass and the smell of bleach covering the smell of worry. Here's what I can tell you that is clean. I do not open. I park nose out. I keep my keys where my hand knows. I set an alarm for the ugly hour even when I'm in a bed with a door that belongs to me. When I wipe fog from glass, sometimes letters appear I did not write, and I wipe harder and the letters fade and my face returns. And it is enough. And sometimes on long drives, when the sky is just beginning to argue with dawn, I pass exit 47 without stopping and the road hums beneath me in that way that says, "Keep going." I whisper thank you to a version of me who got soaked once and knocks now so the rest of us can learn the ritual. 3 taps, the shape of a plea you can honor without obeying. I don't open. I don't forget. I sleep in places with witnesses, and at 2:13 a.m., wherever I am, I listen, then let it pass, then keep going.